Hi there! How are you doing? I hope everything is going fine on your side. Welcome to this video. If you are new on this channel, if it's the first time you watch a video from me, welcome and consider to subscribe if you like it, and if you want to see more content in the future, don't hesitate to ask me in the comments, and I will see and do my best to reply, and why not make a video on a subject that you would like me to address. Today's video is about the Lumix S1 and S1R button settings, and I made the switch from the Nikon D3S and DSLR in general to the hybrid system from the Element Aliens using S1 and S1R with powerful Leica L lenses, and also you can mount Nikon AIS lenses, AFS lenses, and Leica M, and of course plenty of Panasonic and Sigma lenses if you want. So today's video is about the menu and mainly the button settings, and I think it's very interesting for you to check what we can do with this body to match nearly the D3S button settings, or D5 and so on. I made a video on the D3S settings. You can match it, and you can go even further with the S1 series because the configuration options are even more powerful than what we can find usually on DSLR. So let's jump into this video directly to see what we can do with all those menus and buttons that you can find everywhere on this body, in the front, in the back, and also on the top. Let's see that right now. To start with, let's remember where I come from. I come from the Nikon D3S, D3X, D850, and so on and so forth. And these cameras have lots of buttons. So what's the purpose of this Pro bodies camera is that you can access to all the main functions instantaneously. You don't lose time to go into the menu, and you can select a lot of function. Even though you have the eye in the viewfinder, you can access to different functions just by touching buttons. And that's very powerful because you don't lose time while you are shooting, and you don't lose the shot, because if you are, let me check, let me change the ISO settings or whatever, then the situation has changed and you have lost your shots. So I come from this, and I'm used to have access to all my settings just touching some buttons. That's it. So first things first is about the PSAM mode that you want to select. It's easy on a DSLR, you switch on mode and you select PSAM. Here on the S1 body, it's on the top wheel. Here you have the PSAM function, and you can go further with the C1, C2, C3 that you can customize. And in the C3 you can address 10 configurations, so it can be very powerful for the video settings, for instance. And also you have some artificial intelligence position here, and you have of course the video position that switch directly to the video. So PSAM, easy, top dial, no problem. Second thing, of course, is the burst shooting that you can set here with this wheel that you can turn. You can have slow burst or high burst with lots of image per second. You can do that on this button here with 2 positions, and then you have also when you want a time delay before it takes a picture. But 2 first position can be set to either burst shooting, or you can go further with this one, is that you can also have 6K photo on the first or second position. Me personally, I made native position is 1 shot by shutter release. Second one is high burst shooting, and the third one is 6K. And in this case, you are doing a 6K photography that the S1 and S1R are able to do at the moment. So next Next one, obviously, is about the ISO settings, white balance, and compensation of exposure here. You have these three functions on the three buttons on the top, and I didn't change any setting on this. So white balance, ISO, and compensation of exposure on the right here. When you press the ISO here, you will have access to the either you want it to be in auto ISO or you want to select the ISO. And the good thing is about the maximum ISO that you want on the top that you can change by turning the front wheel. And for instance, in my case with the S1R, I will stop to 3200 maximum ISO. Metering is very important in photography, and usually in the D3S, for instance, you have this button here that you can turn, and depending on the position, you will have matrix metering, you will have center weight metering, or you can have spot metering. What I usually do is, let's say I leave it on matrix metering or center weight, and I will use the button here, the front button here, to switch from spot metering to the one that is selected here. So I leave it on matrix, and if I want a spot measure, I will push the button here. So what do I do with the S1R? I have changed the function of this video mode here, and I have addressed on this button the function for the metering options. And when you push it, you select what you want. And what I did also is that I have asked that the front button here, the bottom one, you have two buttons at the front, so the bottom one is addressed for the spot metering as I do on my usual DSLR. So same thing, very powerful, very simple, one button, and you can change all the things. The good thing compared to here is that you have to press and turn, which is not very easy to do. And in this case, you just have to press, but it's the wheel that you rotate. So you press it and you rotate the wheel, and you can do it while you have the eye into the viewfinder. So you can press when you are okay. You just half press the shutter release and you go out of the function settings. So let's see the next now. Another important function that you have on a Pro Body DSLR is the auto exposure lock button. What is it? It's when you make your composition, you want to measure the light once and don't want it to change if you recompose your frame. The easy way to do that is just press AE lock. So you press it, it will lock the exposure at the position and the situation you want, and then you can recompose your picture using this same exposure. The Lumix S1 don't have the function button for auto exposure lock, but what I did is that I addressed this function to the center of the joystick here, and when I press it, I lock the exposure. So for instance, if I lock the exposure here, you will see that it will be very overexposed, and if I click it again, then it is correctly exposed to the wall behind me. So this is how I do it on the S1 bodies, pressing the joystick to lock the exposure. Let's see the next. Another button that I love to use on my cameras, if it is available, is the AF on button. What I do with it is that I make the autofocus using the back button, and I take the picture using the shutter release. That means that when I press here, it doesn't activate the autofocus. Only here the autofocus is activated. And on the S1, S1R and so on, you have the same function here. You can use the back button AF on, and I have set the same thing. The autofocus is working only if I press this button, not if I press the shutter release. And I love to work like that. And I am happy that on the S1 series, you can do the same. Press AF on to make the focus and then take the picture pressing the shutter release. Let's see the next. What about bracketing? On the D850, the bracketing button is on the top left here. On the D3S, it's on this here. You have bracketing function here. And what I did with the S1R, you have the live view finder here button to change some settings. And I decided, you know what? to address the same function as on my Nikon D850 that I sold since, but when I press here, you will see the menu of the bracketing that appears, and pressing it again, you can select if you want bracketing on exposure, bracketing on aperture, or bracketing on the focus. And it's powerful because you can select what kind of bracketing you want just by pressing the button instead of going into the menu. In the Nikon DSLR, when you press bracketing, it will bracket on the option that you have selected in the menu. So you have to go into the menu and specify that you want the bracketing to be on the exposure, for instance. Here you can select it just pressing the button, or you leave it to off, and that's it. Half press and you go out of the function. Very good. What is the next? Okay, the next is very simple. It's about the two dials that you have on Pro Body DSLR. You can select the speed by turning the back dials, and you can select the aperture if you are in aperture mode priority using the front dial. And the good thing, of course, on the S1 and S1R is that you have two dials, so you can select aperture with the front dial and speed with the back dial if you are in aperture priority, speed priority, manual, or program. So it's very easy. Here I am in aperture priority, and when I turn the front dial, I see the aperture that I am selecting, and when I change the aperture, I see the speed that is also changing with a kind of illustration, sliding illustration on the top of the aperture. So simple, nothing to say about this. Okay, one important thing with all the cameras that you can have is to be able to switch between manual mode, continuous shooting mode, and single shooting mode. I mean continuous autofocus or single autofocus. So manual, single, continuous. You have a button that is dedicated to that on the S1 series body. Is this two button here. You can turn this to be in single, continuous, and manual mode. And when you press it, you have access to all the functions regarding the autofocus. But the good thing also is that you can hide, if you want, some of them that you never use, you can hide them from this menu. So when you will click here, they will all disappear and you will have only the one that you want to appear. So let's see how we do that, for instance. So to do that, you will go into the tooling menu in the first autofocus menu, and you will go into the show hide IF mode. Then you go here and you can select that, for instance, you don't want the vertical autofocus area to be displayed. You don't want the square to be displayed. You don't want the oval to be displayed. And for instance, you don't want custom 1 and custom 2 and 3 to be displayed. And in this case, if I come back here and I press this button, you see that all the IF options are here, and I don't have two sub-menus for that. I have all the IF options that I want. So very easy, you can configure this option button here to show only what you need. So let's see the next thing. So let's see one of the most powerful function that I find into the S1R bodies. It's the joystick. You might think that the joystick is only to change the position of the shutter, not of the focus point, okay? Maybe you think about it, but believe me, you can access to and address to this button 5 functions, in fact, and that's very powerful. Let me show you how you do that. You go into the menu, here, and then you go into the FN button sec into rec mode, and you display 2 times here, and you have the 5 functions that you can address to this button, and I will show you which one they are. And also, I will show you how you can activate the fact that the 4 directions of the joystick are not dedicated to select the IF position, but you can address function to it. So let's see how I can do that. To do so, you go into the parameter here, in the second operation, and you go into joystick joystick setting. And here, the first thing is defocus. So if you click here, it will only help you to decide where the focus point here is. But me, I selected FN, function. And doing so, I can address to this button here the 5 functions. One function is when I press, I lock the exposure, like I told you. When I go up, I enter the menu to select the focus point. Okay. If I go on the left, I will select the minimum shutter speed in case I am in ISO auto. When I press down, I will zoom into the area around the area of focus. When I go right, I will do something that is, to my point of view, very interesting, is that I will change the point of measuring the light. So if it's like if I am in spot metering, but the spot is not where I make the focus. In the contrary of spot metering is that you make the measure of the light at the point of focus. And it's very powerful if you want to preserve, for instance, very high light, or if you want to make the exposure to correspond to something that is not spot metering, but that is linked to a specific area that you want to preserve, and you don't want to overexpose or underexpose this area, making the focus on something else. So that's very powerful. Here it's hover regarding the 5 function on the joystick. Let's see what I do with the wheel here. It's even the same philosophy and same power on this wheel. Let's see that right now. So what can we do with the back wheel here? You know, with the back wheel we can change the size of the area of focus, for instance, and then you can assign 4 functions to the 4 direction of this joystick. In fact, it's a joystick. So what do I have? On the top one here, I have the assistance for the horizon of the body, and when I am green, it means that I am okay, so it's something that helps you. And you have also in the S1R and S1 the function that let you know when you are good in this vertical position also. I am green in vertical and I'm green now in horizontal, so I am set, and I can leave it and screw my ball here, so I know that I am correctly set with the horizon of my body. Second one is on the right here. I will be able to show the histogram of the composition. I select where I want it to be. I press in the middle to say yes, okay. And when I am okay with the exposure, so here for instance, I will underexpose or I will overexpose. So I see the histogram and its evolution. And if I want to hide it again, very simple, press on the right. What's in the button? Button is I want to show or not the grids. For instance, the first one is a simple grid with the third rule, and you have also access to this grid that will give you also the diagonals, and it's not the third but the square, so you have 3 lines and 3 lines in this vertical and horizontal direction. And also you can have this very powerful thing is that you can select a specific vertical and horizontal line which give you a crossing point. So when you are happy with it, you confirm this, and then you will have these 2 lines that are shown on the frame, so it can help you to compose always with the same framing. For instance, if you are doing a portrait and you want the eyes to be always at the same point but not according to the rule of the third but somewhere else, you can just select where you want it to be, and when you press OK, then you can make all your pictures trying to put the eyes always in this point. So easy, and then you can also hide this function. And on the left here I have the tool that helps you master the in-body image stabilization. That means that when you are using the in-body image stabilization, these red circles and you have a little point, green point in the center, and if you are moving, if you are moving too much, the green point is going on the external circle. That means that the body cannot stabilize your movement. But when you are in the center of the first circle, it means that you are corrected and the picture will be sharp without any blur of your movement. So very easy, powerful. When you are using the image in-body image stabilization, you can easily help you to be sure that you don't move too much. And you can hide it again, very easy. What's the next menu? Let's see that. Okay, the next one is a Q menu. The Q menu, you can configure it like you want. And the first function that I have addressed to the Q menu is the in-body image stabilization. And here I can select it to be off, or I can activate. So when it is activated, I can help myself using these two circles to do it properly. Second thing is about the peaking, and not about activating or not the peaking, but the sensitivity of the peaking. So I can select from -2 to +2, or leave it to the native position, and I will activate the peaking using here the trash button, and you have the P that will appear here. There is a P for peaking, so I activate peaking with this, and I can change the sensitivity in the Q menu. Third function is about the ratio of my JPEGs if I am working in JPEG, or even if I'm not working in JPEG, I can, for instance, select the 1:1 ratio, and it will help me to frame my picture if I think about printing it in 1:1 later. So I can already help me using this ratio for my composition. And all the other functions in the Q menu are about the image quality and image color and so on if I work in JPEG. And what I did is about, yes, the two buttons here. So as I said, the bottom here is for spot measuring, and the top here is to show me the exposition and the depth of field. And if I am changing the aperture, I press this button to see the result and make him shut the aperture and show me the depth of field. So that's it, I guess, for this body. Let me think, but there are also two other buttons, and let's see what they are. It's interesting as well. So which one is it? It's about the lock here. When I lock this button, I will lock the screen, so I cannot touch the screen, but I can touch everything else. Why do I do that? It's because sometimes when you are making and looking into the EVF, sometimes the noise is touching the screen, and to avoid changing the position of the autofocus, just lock the screen and nothing else by turning this button into the lock position. Easy, simple. They thought about it, and you can, of course, when you are here, you can select what you want to lock, of course. The last one is the one in the front here that is a lever in one or two positions. You have two positions. How does it work? You select the function that this lever addresses, and you define what the function is when you are in the position 2 of the lever. So when you are in position 1, nothing is changed. All your parameters are like you set them. And for instance, if you address to this button the autofocus function, in my case, when I turn it to 2 here, I will have activated the human detection autofocus. And when I press it and leave it come back to 1, all my autofocus are available. And if I am in position 2, only human detect AF is activated. So here it is for this very powerful S1 series body, and I hope this hasn't been too long. I'm afraid it's a little bit too long, but as you have seen, it's very impressive, the number of functions that you can address to the body. And personally, as more I use the body, as more I am used to knowing exactly where the functions are, and mainly with the joysticks and the wheel here, I know what it does when I press them up, left, down, and so on. So very powerful. Here it will give me access to specific function, and here it will give me access to visual function that I will activate or not on the screen. Perfect. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you have appreciated it. Tell me in the comment if it was helpful for you. Tell me if you have some other ideas for these functions and what you have done on your side. Let's discuss about it, and see you in the next video. Goodbye and have a good time. See you.